on and reframing, which, yeah, for a first practice are not the skills that's, you know, the easiest, as when you felt quite, you know, strong.
Okay, Irene, I think.
And then there is a mix of everyone. Yeah. You don't
Sorry,
hear me?
Not too well. You're breaking. So I'll take over if that's okay.
Okay. Do you want to take over? Yeah.
Okay. Maybe now we actually hear you. Okay. Today technical issue.
So continue. But tell me if tell me and take over if it's not working.
Yeah. No, it's not working. Okay.
But it's just nice to see that, I mean, all skills were mentioned mainly, and okay.
Sorry. All right. So yes, exactly what Irene said. I guess you understood. It's pretty normal. Yes. Thank you to all those that participated. Really appreciated it. So yes, you're pretty much on track. There was embodiment and metaphor and geography that really didn't kind of land yet. So maybe just a general suggestion today, try to use that more than others. And then I'm trying to change slide, but I don't manage. Okay, there we go. So the most challenging for you, absolute favorite is embodiment, metaphor, and geography, followed by powerful questions and curiosity. So again, maybe you want to ask your triad buddies to exercise a bit on those. If there's any specific question about these skills, something that can, you know, I can help you with, that we can support you with, please let us know now. Otherwise, we continue with the questions. And I take it as a yes to continue because I don't see anyone raising their hand or anything. All right, so these were a bit the, what do you think, you need to do for the challenging coaching skills? So a lot of you said practice, definitely. Try to use it and ask for feedback. That's really a great tip there for everyone. Interaction, brainstorming with colleagues to take inspiration. Yes, so for example, you can have the practice rounds that you can organize among yourselves, or just, you know, ask one another use one another. You have a lot of knowledge in the group, and definitely you can continue to use one another as a resource. On action and accountability, accepting that people can say no or make a counteroffer. And that there's no magic bullet. There's not that one request, that action that is gonna, you know, be the perfect one. But it's just about providing that opportunity to come to an action, to integrate the insight people had into action. I need to learn when it is the most appropriate moment. And these I've cut the question, but it said, you know, appropriate moment to, for example, ask where they feel the emotion and things like that. And again, I would say practice here is the secret. And of course, intuition. Not too fast, not too long, not too many information, especially in the questions. Great tip. Absolutely, you guys totally get this. Fantastic. Asking questions not only to elicit responses, but also kind of as a way to explore, right? So for them to think through things they haven't thought through yet. Great pieces of advices. Thank you, guys. Irene, do you want to try to jump on board, or I'll just continue? Yeah, you just jump in when you want to try. Some questions.
Just to mention, Agnese, that there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Tamara.
Okay, I don't see it. Can you read it for me?
You didn't see before, but she was.
Yeah, I was asking about curiosity.
Yeah, she was, yeah, exactly.
Can you give us an example of a question related? Because curiosity, again, we understand it from our own curiosity and not how to prompt the curiosity of the other person, right? So can how is this translated? I'm not able to understand it or capture it.
Great. So, for example, you say, you hear someone say many times, I'm overwhelmed, I don't manage, I'm just so overwhelmed. And you just get curious. Okay, how, what's overwhelmed? What does it feel like? What happens when you're overwhelmed? Where does it send you? In what state are you? How do you see yourself when you're overwhelmed? What are your triggers? What triggers you into overwhelm? So you're like, on their behalf, you're curious about what is it that it actually means to be overwhelmed, for example. And in itself, that's going to increase their awareness, for example, of triggers, things, blah, 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 and so on. I think that's, yeah? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
So can we show our empathy by admitting we share the same problems, challenges as the coachee? This is an incredibly rich question, and we could talk about this again for a day, but I just going to try to bottom line it here and say, I would rather go for compassion than empathy. Of course, I mean, you can't have compassion without empathy. And I'm going to share some resources with you afterwards, but like if we picture someone being in an emotional state, and we get into their same emotional state, we're not really going to be serving them much. If we feel what they feel, we're not going to be in a position of actually resourcefulness. We're going to be dragged into their story, dragged into their emotion, and we're just going to see what they see, feel what they feel. So what we want is to sort of put a distance. So if they're like in this pit of emotion, we want to be just on the border of that pit, outside of it, so that we can give a helping hand and get them out of there if they need to be taken out of there. Also, emotion, like if I feel the same emotion than the person, I might be stealing their space to kind of freely leave that emotion. And I might be even be triggered on my own emotional response that might not be what they're actually experiencing. There is a bias sometimes in emotions and the empathy of emotions. So I want to share with you a little article that basically says a bit of that. And it says that compassion is where most sustainable. So as a leader, you want to have a compassionate posture, attitude, right? So you still have that proximity, you still have that empathy that allows you to feel, to see what they're feeling, recognize it without being dragged into it. I hope this clarifies. If it doesn't, I don't remember who asked the question, please let me know and we're going to elaborate more.
And yes, I can add one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because in this question, I also see the fact that it's a lot about self-management, because beside the empathy, there is the idea of sharing the same problem. And this can come very often in coaching. So you do have the same problem, or you do share the same situation. So it's really a work you need to do in self-manage. What are your thoughts, and really focus on the coachee you have in front of you. So try to forget about yourself and really focus on how you can help the coachee.
And again, there are ways in which you can show your proximity and closeness and intimacy, if you want, even with this person, without necessarily having to step into their emotions as well, in that way. So then, especially with someone that you don't know well, what's your advice to ensure questions are not invasive to sensitive? My only pointer to this one would be ask them permission. Always. You can ask the permission before you ask the question. You can ask the permission or check in simply after you've asked the question. You can say, if you're not comfortable answering this, I totally understand, and it's totally fine. Right? So they're always at freedom of sharing what they want to share. I hope that resonates with you guys. Let me know if it doesn't. Concrete ways to check on permission of the coachee throughout the session. Yes, that's a bit of the same, right? So check in, check in, check in. I would rather have you checking in too much than not, if it makes sense, right? And it's just like that. Like, you let me know if this is too sensitive. You let me know if this is too invasive. That's really not my intention. My intention here is to support you. And then again, it's that gap between the intention and the impact, right? That we always want to kind of check in and be aware of. If you end the session with an agreed action, but it's not done the next session, how would you discuss it with the coachee in a way that it's not adding more pressure, feeling guilt, etc.? And again, I would say, well, my pointer for this one is curiosity. What happened? I never personally ask, did you do what we agreed you would do? I'm asking, what happened since last time we talked? Yeah, I remember we discussed that action. What happened to that? Right, so you're curious. There might be so many good reasons that provide so much good food for thoughts and for, proximity and discussion in the reasons why the person didn't do it. Maybe they did something else. Maybe they prioritized something that was even more important for them. Whatever. You just want to be curious. So I totally agree. Like, very good catch. We don't want to put pressure. We don't want them to feel guilty. We're side by side. I think the skill articulating what's going on and reframing should be rephrased to reframing and articulating what's going on. So here, in fact, the two skills are really not connected. So these are two different skills. One is articulating what's going on. So you're just, reproposing what they've said to bring clarity, to just hold the mirror. Because sometimes people just say things and don't realize. Like, you could say, wow, you really seem frustrated. I've noticed that your voice really shook, or, when you said that. I realized that, your posture really. So you're just mirroring back with articulating what's going on. Reframing, you're actually proposing a different perspective. So someone is saying, I failed at this, I'm a failure. And you go like, wow, okay, you tried that. How about you've been really brave at taking that risk? You're reframing, the thing doesn't change, but you change the context around it. It's like the glass half full, half empty. So these are really not connected. It's just for practical reasons that we've put them together, because they're not questions, they're not intuition, they're not curiosity. So there's no more than that. So it could be also that way. How do I control myself enough not to share an advice or to give solution when I'm persuaded I have the right one and I want to share it? So the idea is that giving solution is a tool you have in your toolbox to provide support. That's available to you. You always have it. What we're kind of asking you is, how about you add some tools to your toolbox? You can always provide an advice. And the idea here is that what we want is for the person to discover how much they, in fact, don't need you. Right? So you're kind of holding, the objective here is to really create people that are independent and autonomous. So if you feel, for example, that someone is kind of needy or really kind of relying on you a lot, maybe even if that's what they ask for, you want to start to let them see how they could be resourceful and actually count on themselves. And you can still be there with them without abandoning them, right? So it's something in between delegating everything and not being there for them, and providing everything and providing all the solutions. And if you really have the right one, you can also try to brainstorm. You can say, how about we brainstorm together? You throw in 3 solutions, I'll throw in 1. For each 3 you provide, I'll provide 1. And if nothing of this seems to work for you, as I said, I think it's almost unethical not to give an answer that would really change their lives for the better if you have it, but do it at the end. I would recommend. But then again, up to you guys. These are just recommendations. I realized that our roles beyond this exercise involve coaching skills, but are not purely about coaching. Very true. The right way to use these skills when I also have a degree of management responsibility, what's the right way? And that is the question I would like to throw back at all of you, because you guys are actually in the position to make that call. When it comes technically to coaching, I would say always say that you're wearing a bit the coaching hat, kind of make it a bit explicit. Maybe you say, how about today we try to, just me not giving advice right away and we just brainstorm together, or, focus on maybe what you could, come up with. And you might be surprised of, so many things you're going to be learning from them. That's what we hear from mentors and coaches a lot, that they learn a lot in the relationship and they get really inspired by people. But I think this discussion, we're going to have more tomorrow on like how you can use these skills in your work. Okay, so I'll stop sharing then, I guess.
Agnese.
Yeah?
Yeah, so there was a question from Sarah on the chat. How do you manage checking in and challenging?
Checking in and challenging. Sarah, do you want to come online and
yeah, just to balance it between checking in that people feel like comfortable and okay with the questions you're asking, and then asking them questions that will challenge them, which potentially will make them uncomfortable. So how do you balance between checking in and giving them the opportunity to say, actually, no, I don't want to answer that, but knowing that maybe when you're challenging them, they might not want to answer that if they could choose. So how do you balance?
All these questions, in fact, if we had more time, it would be interesting to just turn them to you and ask you to answer them, because I know you have the answers to these questions. So yeah, maybe just for this one, I would like to ask you back, if you feel like answering it. I know it's a bit challenging, so if you don't, I can answer it for you.
So I can say, actually, no, actually, I'm not comfortable answering this question.
Fantastic. And this is when you know that I'm serious about it, right? It's when I'm going to now answer that question for you, right? I'm not going to, this is not a play. I'm serious. Like, I'm giving you the option. And if you don't take the opportunity because of whatever reason, I'm going to answer it for you. And so for me, the trick is really this. It's really to have the trust in the relationship, that I know that when I challenge you, it's just because I really have a vision for you. I really believe that you can do that. I'm not going to challenge you beyond what I think you can do. Does that make sense? And so then I'm going to, so when I'm really going for a challenge, I'm actually going to ask permission. I'm going to say, okay, can I challenge you in this one now? And then, if you don't want to answer, you just don't answer. And sometimes you don't know it before the challenge hits you. So then when that does hit you, you need to feel that you have the trust that that's not going to change anything within the relationship. There's no judgment attached. Does that make sense?
But surely for that to work, you'd need someone who's prepared to be challenged, right?
So the thing is that, how to say, I think we're all really eager to be challenged. The thing that comes in the way is the fear of not being up to that challenge, of being judged, of it's all the kind of limiting beliefs, all the saboteurs we have in our heads, all the noise, if that makes sense. So the moment I manage to kind of actually clear the space between us, and the more I invest in that relationship and make it really explicit, the less of a a big step it is, in fact. Because when I'm challenging you on your on your behalf for your own goals. I'm not challenging you for my needs and my goals. It's not like a manager asking you to do more. It's me saying, I think you're actually belittling yourself, and I think you could do so much more. Of that you want to do.
And I would add that you need to prepare the field for that also. I mean, that safe space to do that needs to be ready. It's not from day one. Now we are running up and speed up all things, and we are asking you to do many things together. But the reality also, when you go back in your work, is that you need to have in front of you the person to be also ready to absorb all of this, or to be feeling fine to give you a feedback and all of that. So this is all very intense, but I would say the reality is that you also in coaching relationship, you go step by step.
And also
so you should know when is the time. And
also not to make this necessarily like heavy. This could be really playful. It's just like, it could be this very energy giving, and it could be a symptom of vitality, how we kind of almost tease one another to be better, and so you could put yourself in there too, right? It doesn't have to be a one way or very serious, taking ourselves extremely seriously, because sometimes that can create a lot of tension within the person, if that makes sense.
Yes, there is a question from Tim. Can coaching be done by multiple people, like in the same conversation? So like two coaches at the same time?
Tim, do you want to come unmute? And
what do you have in mind?
Sure. I mean, just thinking through some of the practical questions, MSF has intersectional structures, and some of us work along with peers in other operational centers in terms of giving guidance to field communications folks. So it occurred to me, is coaching something that's ever done by multiple coaches? Just curious, any insights on that?
I would say you can have coaching conversations with many people. I know for myself, like I have a lot of coaching conversations with many people. Then would I want to have like a coach, like multiple coaches? No, definitely not. It would be a bit, beside the point. It's like having 5 psychologists or 5 doctors, or, it's just, it wouldn't probably, but I can talk about my health and get advice with many people, right? So to that extent, I would say. But if you're an intersectional FCM and you have 5 CAs or whatever, you might want to make sure that you can have conversational coaching conversations with all of them.
Just to ask on that, adding on to what Tim is saying, because we've had some context where, and forgive me if I'm going to use a cultural connotation here, where there are CAs, and then I'm kind of one of the few African CAs, and this has come back to, yes, she's the lead CA, but I don't think she gets me. I think you get me more because you have this kind of cultural context and understanding, and that puts me in a very uncomfortable situation, and it's a space that I've been able to engage and discuss with my fellow CAs. So just putting it out there for our own recognition of it as something that we could look into. And then my question would then be, how can we best effectively cultivate that trust that despite this person being from Europe or from the US, that they are going to coach me effectively as a person, regardless of those kind of race, religion barriers that we...
This is a very layered question, but I would say, let's say that your heritage and your culture is part of who you are, and it's one of your qualities, and it's one of the things you bring to the table. Why not treating it as a resource that is available for the whole group? So if you can make that transition and, you know, bring your qualities, experience, understanding, and put it to the service of the group, of your peers, why not? So I wouldn't, you know, be blind to that and say, no, we should all be the same. I'm sure you all have your different, you know, the different things you bring. You know, like I'm the heated one, passionate one, and all that. Irene, she's like crazy good with structure and timekeeping, which I'm doing a very bad job at, and all the things you maybe don't see that she's doing throughout this week. It's, you know, it's mind blowing. And thank you, Irene. Without you, you know, but maybe I'm more visible. Maybe I'm more. We're playing on our skills. We're playing on our different, you know, qualities as a team.
Just a question, because
Thank
there
you,
it's
Ilan.
more,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more a question in link with our role, because I'm sorry, Wairimu, I'm shocked that you could hear this professional relationship, and I would like to know if it's okay just to do the distinction between, so if you are a coach, and I understand that in a coachee/coach relationship, I can, or you match, there is a reciprocal match. So I could decide to choose or not choose you just because we don't have the same cultural background or so on. But there, if you are a lead CA and it's a professional relationship, and I mean, you are not the manager, but it's like you are the functional supervisor, I don't see how someone could tell you, I don't want you to be my boss just because you don't have the same background than I have. I mean, it's where maybe it's difficult to mix this between management and coaching. And so I don't have the answer, but really I'm asking, what do we put the line or the border? Because there are some things that are not acceptable in a professional environment.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's really layered, right? There are so many levels to that. Like, it would be very interesting to see what is that the person is actually after with that comment. What is it that, you know, someone is getting? It's getting me, and someone else is not. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details now, but like there's comfort and discomfort, right? So there are things that make us feel comfortable, and we tend to kind of find ourselves seeking those because we feel safe, right? So how about you work on that challenge? If there is a challenge, without denying it, right? How can you be comfortable in being challenged in that? Because let's say, even if that's the reality, you have two different cultures and there's a mismatch and you don't understand one another, chances are you both are going to get into the same circumstances in other areas of your life, in other relationships. So how can you use that challenge as a learning experience? And the coaching conversation helps you make it safe, because you can explore it. You can, you know, talk about one another in an explicit way, with compassion, with no judgment, and really try to kind of unpack what's in there, so that then in other relationships, you're not going to react that way. I think we're going a bit on a tangent here, and I just wonder if there's anything for the practice today that you still need to know. Any question? You guys ready?
Yeah, they look so. And it's true that we are going to discuss more about how to use those skills, how to link this with your role tomorrow. So I think many of the questions that were raised can be, you know, looked at in depth tomorrow too. So now let's go back to the practice.
Yeah, and I just want to add, sorry, one last thing, which is the moment you start to get something new, right, you're going to be very heady. You're going to start to have a lot of questions up here. And my recommendation is now go again into practice and kind of put this a bit on hold. Like I want to almost say, stop trying to figure everything out. and get the muscles kind of have that knowledge by just practicing it and see what happens. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so for the practice, we would like you, when you get into groups, and we will have triads again, different people together, hopefully. I hope I made a good job. Name the skills, the coaching skills that you want to, that is challenging, and then maybe you want to practice more today. So name it in front of your group. And so that eventually the observer, the coachee can also, look at this and give you a feedback afterward. So we'll let you try this. And then in terms of the rules of the game are exactly like yesterday. So same time for rotate, same time for feedback. So it was 12 minutes for the practice, 3 minutes for the feedback. The difference today, as we mentioned yesterday, that me and Agnese and Irene, we would roam throughout the groups. We will be very discreet again, no video, no audio. We'll come in, get out. But again, if it's not the moment for us to be there, just say it. Really, there is no problem. And again, this is just to provide some more feedback tomorrow. And of course, because maybe you are choosing some topics that are more personal, we of course commit to the full confidentiality that we agree at the very beginning. So just to repeat it. Is there any question before we go? No? So you will see, so after the practice, you can go, and you'll see some more homework for actually tonight and tomorrow. There is some acknowledgement exercise that I think it's good if you look at it already today to practice a bit, and then self-reflection as we did the other days. And I think it's all.
There was a question from Guylaine, and Guylaine, I would say it's up to you. You can choose to use the same topic as yesterday or another one. I would just recommend something that you still can explore. So if you've exhausted the topic, I would say probably not. But if you can still kind of work on it and explore more, definitely.
Okay. So enjoy the practice. Good luck with that. And see you tomorrow. Thank you.